Hello Wolfey, everyone's here. Ha, got you. Welcome back to Sunwell Raid Boss by Boss Guide, family friendly. So far we are 2 out of 6 in progression and we dropped some nice tier 6 pieces for our tanks, healers and carry DPSers. However, hopefully you guys have good priests that can mass the spell on point, cause today's video will glorify them. As Felmyst cruises through the sky above us and we have nowhere to go, it's time to shoot this bony lizard down. Let's rock! As a dragon type of mob, it will surprise you that she doesn't use tail lash, so standing behind the dragon is allowed and actually advised since she still does cleave, and cleaves for a lot. But let's start with abilities one by one and actually split them into two phases that this boss fight has. Phase 1 or ground phase. Melee hits for average about 5 to 6,000 physical damage, but won't crush, which is good due to corrosion. Corrosion is hard-hitting attack that deals about 9,500 nature damage and leaves a 10 seconds debuff which increases physical damage taken by 100%. It is used shortly after Encapsulate. Encapsulate will target a random player and connect them with the dragon, raises the player in the midair and then proceeds to deal high amount of arcane damage to the player and dealing AoE arcane damage in a radial shape. Kinda like Calyx Arcane Buffet, but it's limited to 20 yards. Lasts for about 5 seconds, dealing 5 ticks of 3,500 arcane damage. This ability dictates the tactics, spreading and positioning for the most part of it. Gas Nova is a raid-wide debuff that has to be mass dispelled by priest or priests in ideal case. Upon afflicting players, it deals 2000 nature damage and then drains 3000 HP and 1000 mana every 2 seconds. So yeah, it has to be dispelled faster than the world first boss kills on the very night of dropping the new phase content. Noxious Fumes is the boss aura that deals 1000 nature damage every 3 seconds and cannot be resisted. So don't think of any nature resistance gear, auras, potion, etc. It has 100 yards effective range, so pretty much inescapable. And its ability of phase 1, aside from cleave, which can hit up 8000 on average. Now before we move on to phase 2, let's recap how phase 1 works. Upon engaging the boss, Gas Nova will come in about 30 seconds and Encapsulate in about 40 seconds. Just keep an eye on DBM timers for that. But phase change is coming after about 60 seconds, which means another Gas Nova will come very shortly after Encapsulate. Phase 2 begins when the boss takes off into the air. Does 2 demonic vapors, one after the other. Demonic vapor deals 4000 damage to a random player on hit and follows that player who needs to outrun it. Vapor leaves a green misty trail on the ground from which adds spawn, and if a player steps into that misty trail, it will debuff the player with 2000 nature damage dot over 10 seconds and spawn additional skeleton adds. Player should kite the vapor away from the middle of the room and preferably more to the east and west where the raid won't be moving to. After 2 vapors, the very fun mechanic takes place. Fog of Corruption. Boss takes 3 deep breaths and puts up a fog along the room from east to west, or the other way around. I'd rather show you than try explain by words. Anyway, these are 3 possible fog trails, which means you always have 2/3 of the room available to stand in. Raid leader should be able to call them moving to north, south or middle by tracking the boss movement in the air. Basically, the boss stands in the middle for a second or 2, then moves to north trail, south trail or just stays in the middle. After 3 breaths, boss lands down again and goes back into phase 1. Oh, and speaking about the Fog of Corruption, it will mind control you if you step into it, and your guild will have to kill you, kick you, bench you, guild kick you, laugh at you and always remind you for it for the rest of TBC duration. Which is honestly not that bad, I suspect September or October. Anyway, fog is strong and any kind of protection, bubble, block won't help you. As for skeletons, they are best to be tanked and AoE killed as fast as possible before first or at least second breath. This is where warlocks and mages shine, but be careful not to be too close when you over aggro a lot of them. Peli tank can pick them up with a frisbee, then consecration in the middle, judgment another one and then run into newcomer skeletons and drop a big fat holy rat with a trinket. Main tank can help out by tanking some as well and taunting off of the clotties. Shamans can help with fire elemental and earthbind totem, and hunters can put up a slowing trap. And any engineer can drop a bomb. However, keep in mind that surviving and not getting mind controlled in this phase has a higher priority over trying to score more AoE damage. I'm not saying it's impossible, just pay attention, especially arcane mages with their arcane explosion. Inner raids are best spent on COH priests. Handling mechanics from phase 1 and 2. When Corrosion hits the tank, he or she will need a lot of spam healing from holy paladins and shamans, along with HUDs from resto druids. During the Corrosion, you can pop a defensive cooldown if you have one. As a tank, focus on mitigation gear with nice threat output, for which I would suggest getting a nice amount of expertise. In case of Corrosion, getting parried by a boss means you will get hit more often. So for Felmyst, expertise plays both offensive and defensive roles. During Encapsulate, the boss won't be hitting the tank, so every healer should commit to keeping the encapsulated target alive. This includes any variation of oh crap macro with nature swiftness, holy shock or a bubble shield. Targeted player should pop an arcane protection potion as well as the health stone. Having a violet badge on top of that, if you can afford one, is nice since the incap is resistible. If you hear the term freebie, that means that the incap landed on a paladin or mage, and we all know what they're capable of. In that case, regroup at your designated spot and burn the boss as hard as you can. Handling Gas Nova is 90% on priests and 10% on raid, since raid needs to be stacked in designated spots while priests need to land that mass dispel. We will get to raid positioning in a moment. Since Incap and Gas Nova are practically opposite spells when it comes to raid positioning, you need to be aware and move a lot and fast. When raid leader calls encapsulate coming, everyone spreads outwards and away from healers who should remain static to be able to instantly heal. Once a target is picked, you move away from the target and go back to your designated spot if you got space outside of 20 yards incap AoE. Or if you're targeted, do anything to survive or just negate it if you're paladin or mage. And when incap is finished, everyone needs to stack back for the upcoming Gas Nova and Mass Dispel. Don't be greedy with DPS, prioritize survival. During phase 1, raid is split into 3 groups for 3 mass dispels, since each dispels a maximum of 10 players, one range group on the left, other one on the right, and melees with pets and tank at the boss. And this is most usually handled by Shadow Priest, so COHs can do one mass dispel each and go back to COHing like crazy. Cue you need to follow is this.
Choke on your final breath!
As soon as you hear that, start casting the mass dispel on your group. Phase transitions. When boss takes off after phase 1, all ranged can continue to attack, but beware of vapors and threat. Boss is not tauntable and the threat does not reset, so make sure to drop your threat before phase 2 starts. Feign that on cooldown during the first phase, trust me hunters. Mages can invis, but Warlock's Soul Shatter has a range, so make sure to be in 50 yards range when you use it. When boss lands and transitions from phase 2 to phase 1, everyone stack into your groups and let the tank position the boss. Ranged can attack, but melees should mind the cleave. Pulling and tanking this boss is tricky sometimes, since the boss flies around and any AoE ability such as Mass Dispel, Blizzard or similar can aggro the boss, even Searing Totems. Hunter should empty pull her when she's flying above the raid group. One raid group stack around the box, another group around the smaller box. Tank all the way at the bottom next to the stump and firewall. Every phase 1 should start like this. Once again, I want to go over spreading for incap, since incap will be an ability that will wipe your raid in most cases. East group should spread towards east and north. West group should spread towards west and north, like so. Melee should go away from the tank to the left and right, under range groups, but not outside of healing range. 1 or 2 melee deaths are not as big a deal and you can still down the boss without them. Enrage timer is rather long. In case you kill the boss while she's transitioning into phase 2, she will enrage instantly and keep her health at 1 HP. Since phase 2 is a script, you need to survive it, which includes avoiding all 3 breaths and killing all skeletons. Once phase 2 ends, you need to land just one more last hit on the boss to kill it. Beware of instant cleave though. Healing assignments and how to handle every mechanic as a healer. COH, as I mentioned already, are carrying hard, since there is a lot of AoE damage going around. Apart from that, AoE Dispel is very important, since the debuff drains a lot of mana. Besides Circle of Healing, Bubble on Incap and possible Binding Heal on Incap. You won't do specific tank healing ever. Tank Healer is a fully dedicated Holy Paladin who will spam high rank of Holy Light during Corrosion. Resto Shamans will chain anyone who is dropping and off-chain melees through the tank during Corrosion. lesser healing wave after oh crap macro on in-cap target, and then chain heal anyone who is missing a lot of HP. Resto druids make sure that tank is hooded and that healers are hooded, depending on how many life rotation you can upkeep with your haste. By all means, healers should economize mana usage with some MP5 or a lot of spirit from spirit gear setup, which would include Sunwell trash rings if you got any. During phase 2, keep Rotterdam alive primarily and heal mages and warlocks AoEing skeletons. Also, don't get surprised by vapor damage and dot, it may need spam heals. Lastly, I want to point out how good Prayer of Mending actually is in this fight, due to constant AoE damage. Just use it after every 5 charges are used up. Last word of advice, scroll out the camera and look at the boss in phase 2, especially as a DPS. But I think I covered almost everything. If you have any more questions, write them down in the comments. I always try to answer all of them. You are awesome and you're gonna do great in Sunwell. Take care, stay safe and have fun playing the game. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.